Okay, hello all. This clip ended up being more important than I thought it was going to be when I started doing it. And it relates to last night's proof for the hologram. Anyhow, again, here are the equinoxes and solstices. We have a vernal equinox coming up shortly on the 20th of March. Do not miss it. Learn about these things. We have 2 days on this planet when everything is in balance, and this is the first. The second will be September 22. Anyhow, the UFO that was finally identified in the hologram clip when I did the analysis yesterday, I have gone back to analyze that UFO, and I've kind of blown my own mind with what I've discovered. I spent all day editing and researching and getting the proof I need. Anyhow, if you didn't see the one I uploaded yesterday, proof for the moon hologram, this clip will be out of context. So if you haven't seen that other clip, you need to see it. Here comes the UFO at 20% speed on the left. And each time I increase by 5% speed, and I'm going to give you a few views of it here. Stare at the circle. This little area right here ended up playing a crucial role in allowing me to prove that this is actually the shadow of an object going across the moon. This is real time. Just stare at the Mar over there. That big C. Just put your eyes in the middle of it and you'll see it zoom by. It's 17 frames captured this shadow, and I run at 30 frames a second. So basically it was in frame for half a second. Alright, here we go. This is 20% speed, and there I'm tracking out the shadow. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but I just showed you how I got the information. I'm letting this run out so you can see the hologram wave. Notice how the left side hits the top of the frame long before the right side. This is what we outlined in yesterday's clip with the axial tilt. Alright, now we're going to get back to the actual measurement. Okay, so before I explain the measuring I did of the object's shadow, I'm going to explain a few things. I did a lot of research, as I always do, and I wasn't even going to run this clip because, I put many hours into the clip I uploaded last night, and people are still coming in trying to say it's the camera, and I don't know whether they're just shills or they just don't think. I don't know which it is. But anyhow, I'm going to give this a try, and hopefully it's not going to cause more problems than it solves. If you look over here, this is Mare, or Mar, I will say, I'll pronounce it Mar, which means sea, Imbrium. The UFO shadow goes this way. And here's a bigger view of it. You see this little point right here? It's promontory something or other. But the UFO comes this way. Now this is Mar Imbrium, and if we look over here, it says the outer ring of mountains rise roughly 7 kilometers above the surface of Mar Imbrium. So in other words, here's the ring of mountains where the UFO goes. This is very tall. Now I also looked up this promontory right here. It's 1.6 miles tall right here. But over here it tells us that this ring of mountains, I guess, averages 7 kilometers. Okay? So let's have a closer look. Here it is. The UFO comes this path, and it hits this promontory and then this edge of mountains. And I'll change the view here for you. Oh, that's not the best view. There's a better view. So the UFO comes this way, or the shadow of the UFO comes this way, and the shadow stacks up on these very tall mountains, whether it's the 1.6 for this promontory, or as we're told, this ring of mountains averaging 7 kilometers. I don't know which it is, but it doesn't really matter. It's super tall. All right. So now that we know this, and again, the UFO travels this path, let's look at my measurement. So again, here's Mar Imbrium, this whole area right here. Here's the promontory, and there's the path of the shadow. Now, when I can start to measure the shadow, it's at this point. It actually comes in down here, but it's difficult to see. See how close these initial steps are together? As the curvature of the moon begins to increase, the steps get wider. So here's a wider space, here's a wider space, it's getting wider each time. A little bit wider, a little bit wider, a little bit wider. Now here's a close space. The reason for this is the shadow is stacking up on this either 1.6 mile or 7 kilometer mile high range of mountains. And then the biggest jump of all is when the shadow clears the mountains, and we get one last view of it right here after it makes this jump. So I'll go put this back into the main clip now, but I hope that kind of shows you where I'm coming from. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Let's find out how big the shadow of this UFO is. So what I did is I ran the video forward to the best view of the shadow, and you can see it's circled here. Basically, the scope shop told me that a single pixel at the lunar plane with my setup averages 1.5 miles. One pixel in this picture averages 1.5 miles. So let's see if we can prove that out and get a size for this object. Here's the object zoomed in till you can see the pixels, and I just simply counted across 50 pixels. So it's roughly 50 pixels wide as measured in this way. Okay, so let's test what the scope shop told me. Here is the shadow circled, and this little, I think it's the Bay of Iridium or something like that. I forget the name of it. If I was to take this shadow and plunk it in there, you can see approximately it would fill about that much space. Okay, so just eyeball it. Here's the shadow. There's about how much space it would take up in there. Now let's jump over to Google Earth. Here is the same bay, and we're going to do a little measure. Here we go. We've got to miles right there, and we'll click, and we will drag it out to 75. Close enough for government work. So there it is. I mean, 75 miles, and you know, that's within the ballpark of what we are eyeballing if we take this dot and put it in this bay. It's close. It's not exact, but I think we can safely say that the scope shop has it exactly right. It's about 1.5 miles for a pixel. So let's move along. Okay, so let's just tie all this together in chronological order. So I'm filming the moon, and then this pulse wave hits, which is newly discovered. I did not see that pulse wave at first. Just about the same time that the pulse wave hits the left side of the moon, which is the side the UFO comes from, the wave starts at the bottom. You can see it there starting almost simultaneously. Then the scan line catches up. It was out of frame of the camera, and the UFO goes by. This occurs 4 seconds after the wave starts. The UFO shadow goes by. And then the second, what I'm calling a hologram wave, goes by. Okay, this is 20% speed, and here's the shadow going by slowed down. So now there's 5 frames. Because I've slowed the clip down, there's 5 frames in between each jump. What we're seeing here is between 1, 2, and 3 is equidistant. Then it starts getting bigger jumps from 4, 5, and 6 because of the curvature of the moon. The reason the space between 6 and 7 is less is because the shadow hits those tall mountains. Then the largest leap of all is at 8, and this proves, if I'm right, that the moon is there and that it's three-dimensionally there, just covered with a hologram. All right, then I measure in the way that I showed you the size of the UFO shadow. It's fixed about 50 pixels across, and if we multiply this out by the 1.5 miles that we are told each pixel is with my system as calculated by the scope shop, we find that this is about a 75-mile wide shadow. All right, so I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so as I close out here with my final thoughts, I need to say very clearly, I believe the moon is there. I just think it's covered with a hologram. If in fact this is a hologram, some kind of energy wave, I think it's probably a hologram. I think that the fact that it's physically there is somewhat proved with my analysis of the UFO's shadow. If I was incorrect and that was not a shadow, it would be hard to explain the measurements that I made. I'm assuming that I'm correct, and in that, it shows that there's a 3D surface there right before the hologram wave goes. You know, I've shot a lot of other objects and tons of times questioned why don't we see a shadow on the face of the moon when we shoot some of these things, and there's been a lot of them. Maybe there's a hologram there and maybe you can't cast a shadow on it. That's just an opinion and a guess. At any rate, my feeling at this point is that when I was filming and the wave started, 4 seconds later, that UFO, which I initially thought was a bird shadow, came into frame. Knowing that there's an energy pulse on the same side seconds before it arrives, I think it's quite possible that the UFO has something to do with the generation of that hologram wave. I suppose it could be up there monitoring, viewing, but I just kind of am leaning towards the UFO is directly involved with this organic energy wave. Having said this, I've come to the conclusion that it's a hologram for a lot of reasons. Other research I've done and the filming that we did for many months after we filmed this. This was shot in 2012, and for over a year we shot the moon and captured nothing, no interesting objects. And it wasn't until a couple months ago that I filmed that other little triangle thing and then that slow-moving one that was just a few days ago. Those are the first 2 lunar objects we've shot since we filmed the lunar hologram. The issue here is that before we filmed the wave event, we would set up 3 nights in a row, or maybe I should rephrase that. We had not gone 3 nights in a row without catching something. You know, we put in a lot of hours. But at this point, I think the following. The moon is there. It's covered by a hologram. The UFO is massive, as evidenced by a 75-mile wide shadow. It has something to do with the generation of this wave, I think. And lastly, it's possible that it's something else. Maybe it's a force field. Maybe it's something I've never heard of. But these are my opinions now. Anyhow, there it is. This is a unique piece of film. I've never seen it again. I've seen it once. We filmed hundreds of hours, caught it. We've filmed hundreds of hours since, never seen it. A channel called Dark Sky Watcher claims to have seen this, but I have not seen video yet. Another user has contacted me saying they may know someone who has video of this. So the best I can do for now is say this is an important clip and stay tuned.